I grew up as the invisible daughter who paid everyone else's tabs. After my mom forgot my birthday again, she saw my new Audi on Instagram and called a family meeting to demand I sell it to fund my brother's latest crisis. I brought receipts, literal ones, and set boundaries that reshaped my family and my life. The Sunday my family decided to hold a meeting about my car, the sky over my apartment complex was the color of old Tupperware. I was in the kitchen polishing a smear off the Audi's key fob, half listening to my coffee machine's familiar choke, when my phone buzzed. Family meeting.
Sunday.
4 p.m. Be on time. That was my mom's text. No greeting, no emoji, just the digital equivalent of a gavel hitting wood. 3 days earlier, she'd missed my birthday again. Not a text, not a call. Not even a lazy Facebook post with a childhood photo where my bangs did every era a disservice. I watched other people's Instagram stories that night, candles and laughter and homemade cakes with uneven icing. Mine was a muffin from the night shift pantry and a video of my friend Tessa and our coworker Leon singing off-key in the break room. It was sweet and it was not nothing. But I still checked my phone at 9:12, then 9:49, then midnight. The Audi, my second love and first silent witness, had arrived in my life the week before. A certified pre-owned A5 Sportback, glacier white, miles so low it felt suspicious. 55,000 and change, which meant years of saving, 3 promotions, and the patience to argue over a 0.2% APR with a finance manager named Doug, who had a crocodile smile and a lapel pin. I snapped a photo under my complex's single magnolia tree, petals browning at the edges like toast. Just the hood and my hand, keys dangling. I captioned it, "Here's to driving myself home," and added a small cake emoji because I'm not cruel. Mom doesn't follow me, not actively. But my cousin follows me, and my mother follows my cousin like a missionary follows a rumor. Thursday night, she didn't remember I existed. Friday morning, she saw a car I should not have been able to afford and moved heaven and the fridge magnets. "Are you going?" Tessa asked, leaning in my doorway with her hair in a scarf and a reusable coffee cup that said, in pink cursive, "Not today, system." "I'm going," I said. My voice sounded like a seatbelt clicking. "I'm bringing the binder. And I'm not going alone." Tessa smiled without showing teeth. "That's my girl. We can meet at the corner. I'll be there at 3:50 with snacks in case we decide to run." I laughed, quiet. My stomach twisted like a wet towel. It smelled like rain and lemon pledge inside me. Before it broke. If you ask my mom to tell my story, she starts with the year I baked my first pie at 12. She had tiny hands, she says, miming the crimping of the crust. She made me a pie and cleaned the whole kitchen. I knew then she'd be okay. She leaves out that it was summer and hot, the AC coughing like it had asthma, and Eli had strep and was laminated in sweat on the couch, and she was on day 6 of double shifts. She leaves out that I was tiny because I was careful with how much I ate, so there'd be enough for Eli and maybe a leftovers container to make her bags smell like garlic at work. I grew up in a 2-bedroom duplex that pretended to be a 3-bedroom if you counted the porch. Beige carpeting that was really a slow trap for every stain. The walls were a half shade too close to nicotine. Our neighbor, Mrs. Gutierrez, smoked menthols on her stoop, exhaling advice like it was her second breath. She kept frozen empanadas wrapped in wax paper and would slide one through our mail slot when she heard my keys. My father exited before memory could attach him to a smell. He lives in Georgia now, sells RVs, and has a good Instagram of sunsets. My mother, June, could lift with her legs and her will. She was a nurse's aide for 16 years, then a grocery store manager when her back said enough. Her hair is dark and her eyes are glass that shows you the shape it wants you to be. Eli is 20 months younger. He also has my mother's eyes, but if you look longer, there's a softness, like their glass was blown in a less violent workshop. He was a golden kid, soccer, track, a good singing voice, away with older ladies who slipped him extra cookies at church bake sales. He broke rules with the ease of a cat slipping off a counter and landing into applause. The script for our house was clear by the time I was 9. I would be okay, because I was already so okay. Responsible like it was a personality trait. Eli needed help because he was brilliant and tender and easily injured by life. Mom would say, "Mara, can you run to the bodega for milk?" and press a 20 into my small hand like a blessing. She'd say, "You're so good with him," and she meant it as a thank you and a forecast. I learned to stretch meals, to fold laundry into piles that smelled like bargain fabric softener and sunlight. I learned to talk to bill collectors in a voice that made them repeat my age and say, "Is your mother there?" I learned to do algebra on the back of an envelope while stirring soup, my pencil leaving a greasy gray streak on the countertop. We celebrated birthdays with sheet cakes if we remembered. There was one year when Mom bought a cake on clearance because it had "Congratulations, Emily" in purple script. We laughed and cut around the name. There was one year when I was 14 and Eli turned down my invitation to the movies because his friend said the movie was for kids, and then he made us all late to dinner with Mom after her shift because he couldn't find his other shoe. We ate in the car, and she said next time we'd plan better. For my 17th birthday, I asked for a steering wheel lock because our neighborhood bled cars like they were fruit. Mom said yes and hugged me too hard. Eli said he knew a guy and got me one for cheap that still had the key stuck in it. We took photos in the street with the sun setting like a bruise. You can see Mom half in frame, hair pulled back, eyes on us like she's asking a question. By then I had a job at Geneva's Coffee, a narrow place with a smell like caramelized sugar and wet beans. I loved the morning rush, the way people's faces changed after their first sip, the way I felt like a person who made other people's days begin. I saved tips in a shoebox under my bed, bills pressed into stacks with hair ties, and my middle school science awards. My college fund, small, created from tax returns and a whisper from my mom's pride, turned into something else in the spring of my senior year. Eli tore his ACL in a rec league game. Our insurance was the kind that had a deductible the size of a humorless god. Mom cried over rice and peas and said we'd figure it out. We figured it out by cracking open the fund like an egg. 2 years later, I found a credit card in my name on a statement that came to our house by mistake. Family Solutions. I thought it was a clinic. It was a store that sells adjustable beds and the kind of recliners Medicare likes. $2,337.49. I remember the details that shouldn't matter. How the paper was thin enough to see through. The way my mother's voice lifted a full octave when I said, "Why is my name on this?" The way a moth kept pounding itself against the kitchen light like it was trying to get back to something. She said she needed to finance a lift recliner for Nana, who lived 8 bus stops away and weighed as much as a memory. She said they offered her a credit line and asked if she wanted to add an authorized user. She tried to explain how the lady at the store said it wouldn't matter, how it was just to get a lower interest rate. She said she meant to tell me. She said she'd handle it. She said she was sorry and also how lucky we were to have each other. She was a single mother who had not been single by choice. I was a daughter close enough to smell her exhaustion. I folded the paper and put it in my binder where I kept everything that made me feel like I could control the world. Pressure builds. There are thresholds you don't notice until you're standing on the other side of them. The one where you're a kid, and then suddenly you're the adult who gets called when the smoke alarm won't stop beeping. The one where your mother stops being indestructible and starts leaving her keys in the freezer. Mom found a lump when I was 24. She told me in the car while we waited for the Jiffy Lube guys to finish with her Civic. Her voice was careful, her hands steady on the steering wheel even though we weren't moving. The biopsy was quick and the results were slower. It was not the worst kind, but it was not nothing. She had a lumpectomy in June, radiation in August, a small ledger of side effects that seemed petty, and then became the world. The fatigue, the metallic taste that made her hate my cooking, the fog that made it sound like our house was underwater. I had just started as a nurse on nights. 12-hour shifts that slide into 13 when a patient vomits up something you don't have a name for. Coffee that tastes like a dare. I took FMLA for the surgery and then worked around her appointments. I learned the way radiation rooms hum. I learned how to count seconds out loud for a woman who taught me to count coins for laundry. We got through it with a scabbed kind of grace. Eli brought flowers twice and made good jokes and then began, slowly, to not show up. He was working construction. He hurt his shoulder and got into a fight with a foreman who said he was milking it. He went out with friends who drank more than was a good idea and came home with his knuckles split open like pomegranates. He said he was fine, and he said he just needed a break and a loan, and who even notices an extra $40 from the jar. I knew which pharmacies treated Oxy like a bone thrown high and which stared you down like a parole officer. Eli's injury turned into a habit that turned into a line we would all spend years pretending we hadn't seen when we stepped over it. He went to rehab once, good insurance, and a blessing from the court after a DUI we didn't tell Nana about. It was a place with white walls and yoga, and a counselor who called me one night to ask me to list Eli's triggers. I listed the house and our mother and the way we said his name. We paid for what the insurance didn't, not with savings but with creativity. My raise went to groceries and co-pays and a car battery and a middle-of-the-night phone call where I heard my mom whispering in the dark like if she kept her voice small we wouldn't notice the shape of what we were fixing. Every so often my mother remembered me. Not in the everyday way. We texted, we shared recipes. She called me when she found a brand of vacuum that changed her life. I mean, she remembered the fact of my personhood. She'd buy me a cardigan on sale that was too big and call it cozy. She'd tell me I was her rock like it was a medal and not a confession. She forgot my 27th birthday because Eli lost his wallet at a bar and she was at the DMV with him when my day ran out. She sent a bouquet from the grocery store 2 days later that had a happy anniversary balloon, and I put the balloon in the closet and left it there, half deflated, for 6 months because I didn't know what to do with that kind of helium. There were smaller betrayals that didn't look like betrayals unless you tilt them under the light just right. The year my car, a Ford Focus that hugged every pothole like it was owed a kiss, died for the last time. I had enough in savings for a decent used Civic. Eli called me at work, voice full of tears, because his friend's car had been towed and he needed to get to work tomorrow, and could he borrow my down payment? Just for a week, he said, and added, I swear on Nana. We bought him a beater that didn't beep. It lasted 4 months. He ran it into the back of a truck at a red light while reaching for his phone. He was okay. The truck was fine. The beater folded like a paper crane. The insurance lapped its wheels in circles while I took the bus to work at 10 p.m. I learned all the night people's names. I kept my binder under my bed. When you're good with money, people think you have more of it than you do. When you're a nurse, people think you have a steady river of cash that streams straight into your Saints jar. My aunt called me one night to ask if I could pay for a replacement fridge at Nana's because hers was making a noise like a low growl. I said yes because it was Nana, and because the noise was real. We drove it over in my friend Leon's truck. He waved away gas money, and I paid him in Bengali sweets from the little shop that stays open late on Thursdays. He is part of my life scaffolding now, and at the time I thought he was a nice coworker with a truck and a soft laugh. We collect people like receipts sometimes, and did not know we'd need them later. I paid off the recliner. I paid off hospital parking tickets no one wanted to talk about. I paid off a payday loan I did not take out, but that had my social security number and my mother's mailing address. It's a mistake, she said, and I believed her because the alternative was a language I wasn't ready to learn. The line crossed. My 30th birthday is a blank spot in my call log. My friends, the ones I'd collected from night shift and old coffee shop days and Mrs. Gutierrez's block parties, threw me a surprise picnic in the park. There were sandwiches with serious bread and a cake that had my name spelled correctly. We played a song I love that made the geese on the pond look like they were choreographed. I kept my phone in my bag and took it out 4 times. I told myself I was not trying to catch my mother. I told myself I wanted to take a photo of the light. Eli texted me after dark. Happy, sis. Phone died. Been mad busy. He added a sun emoji and a money bag. Mom texted the next morning. Happy birthday to my baby. Sorry I passed out early. Work was insane. You know how it is. Love you more. It read like a letter from an office. The line crossed on a Wednesday that pretended to be an ordinary thing. I just finished a double, and my brain felt like a room with all the TVs tuned to different channels. I stopped at Walgreens for paper towels and a new toothbrush because mine had gone missing. Standing under the bright aisle lights, I pulled my credit monitoring app open because I needed the control hit. There was a new inquiry from Northline Used Auto, and a new card opened in my name at a big box store. I applied to only for coupons. I called the number. The patient fragility of the hold music made me angrier. The rep was efficient. It was opened in person, she said. Authorized user added. The address on the account was my mother's. The authorized user was Eli. There are words for the moment when your body goes cold and hot at the same time. There are not enough of them. I sat in my car and watched a woman try to cajole a toddler into a car seat and let the scene keep me here. The toddler threw his shoe. The woman picked it up. The toddler screamed and then suddenly stopped. She kissed his hair and said, "We have to go, bud. We have to go now." I drove to my mother's house. I knocked and then used my key because I wanted the sound of the lock catching to announce me. She was in the kitchen, hair damp from a shower, the house smelling like fried onions. She smiled like nothing in the world had moved. I put the printouts on the counter. "Tell me you didn't," I said. Her face changed and then changed again. "Mara, I was going to call you," she said. He had a job offer, but he needed to get a car, and we were running out of time. It was just to hold it until... "No," I said, and I heard my patient voice. "No. You know that's my entire credit." "He promised he'd make the payments," she said, and then, when I didn't blink, "We were going to tell you after. You're always so responsible, and you make such good decisions. I was afraid you'd say no." Eli came in through the back door. His hands smelled like gasoline and menthol. He saw the papers and his face disciplined itself. "Hey," he said like he was tipping a hat. "You opened a card in my name," I said. "No. You used my social for a car." "It's not like that," he said, and then softer, "I needed a hand, Mara." "I've given you a hand so many times I don't know which ones are mine anymore," I said. My voice shook, and I hated its trembling, and I kept going. "I am done. Pay it off, or I will file a police report. I am not covering this. I am not quietly fixing it. This is theft." Mom gasped like I'd slapped her. "How could you say that?" she said. "After everything we've done for you? I did not raise you to threaten the family. You know those scenes in movies where the protagonist lists every sacrifice in a montage? In real life, the lists are boring and ugly, and you forget the best ones." I left. I sat on the steps and called my bank and put a fraud alert on my credit. I called my friend Erin, who is a social worker with a voice like a steady hand, and she said, "I am proud of you, and I will come over with pasta." We didn't speak for a week. Then I got a text from Mom that said, "It's handled." The card was canceled. The inquiry remained. The car at Northline was never purchased in my name. Eli waved at me from across a parking lot a month later and shouted that the job fell through anyway. I wasn't surprised. I was tired. My birthday this year fell on a Thursday. We'd been short-staffed all week, and the hospital felt like a mouth missing a tooth. My friend Leon left a cupcake on my charting station with a little paper flag that said, 33 looks good on you. Tessa taped a Polaroid of us to my locker, where we were making the kind of faces you make when you're about to do something you should not. My mother did not call. I watched our family group chat stagnate with meal prep photos and a link to a GoFundMe for my cousin's dog, who'd eaten a fork. I went home and slept like I had been underwater all day. I woke up at 6 p.m., ate leftover stir-fry, and told Tessa we should go look at the car I'd been eyeing online. "I'm your bad influence now," she said, stealing a green bean. "You're my permission," I said. At the Audi dealership, everything smelled like fresh rubber and money trying to be subtle. Doug wore a suit that tried too hard to be invisible. He asked me what I did for a living and said, "Night shifts, wow," as if I'd told him I wrestled alligators. He looked at my credit, and his eyebrows did a small dance. If he saw the scars from last year, he didn't mention them. Maybe the fraud alert did its job. Maybe I looked like someone whose life was a neatly folded thing. I test drove a silver car first and felt nothing. Then I sat in the Glacier, white, A5, and my bones let out a sigh I didn't know I'd been holding. The dash lines looked like someone had drawn them with a ruler and a sense of humor. The seat hugged my lower back, as if it had read my chart. I drove it on the highway, and the world turned into a ribbon. I turned down the sales guy's excited patter and listened to the engine hum. It sounded like the kind of quiet you can only earn. I signed. I texted Leon to meet me at the dealership because I wanted a friend there when I drove off in case I threw up. He stood beside me in the camera frame, holding up the key, grinning. I posted it at 9:37 p.m. with that caption that now feels, in hindsight, like a declarative sentence wrung out of a whisper. 2 likes came in before my hair dried after my shower. By morning there were 33 DMs from people who said, "You deserve." One from cousin Nadia that was just eyes. I walked down to the car in my slippers with a microfiber cloth and wiped an invisible smudge off the hood. I sat in the driver's seat and took a breath that felt like a new window opening in my chest. At noon on Friday, my mother texted.
Just that line.
Family meeting. Sunday.
Be on time.
I called Tessa. We have a shorthand that feels like a language. I said, "It's happening." And she said, "Binder or baseball bat?" And I laughed and then I cried, the joyful, furious kind that makes you look like you ran a mile in bad shoes. I pulled out my binder. It is black with a clear sleeve on the front where I'd slid in a magazine photo of a mountain road. I tabbed the sections. 1. Money I've given or lent. 2. Times I've taken time off work for family. 3. Identity theft and fraud documentation. 4. Text transcripts of times I said yes when I wanted to say number 5. Resources list for mom and for Eli, social services, clinics, legal aid. 6. Boundaries. I printed copies. I wrote an opening statement in a notebook and then ripped it out because it sounded like a TED Talk. I wrote another one that sounded like a girl in a hallway saying, "Stop, don't do that, it hurts." I met with Erin, my social worker friend, for coffee, and she said to talk like I was talking to someone I loved who kept burning their hand on a stove. In the margins I wrote, "No money, no co-signing, no loans, no using my name or credit, no emergencies that are not medical or safety. Consequence, no contact for 3 months, then reevaluate." I texted my Aunt Lori, the only person on my mother's side who ever asked me how I was doing without turning the answer into a home project. "Can you come?" I asked. "I will bring deviled eggs," she wrote back. "I will say nothing unless asked. I will try to sit between you and June." I also thought about not going, about leaving my phone face down and driving to the coast until the sun slid off the edge of the day. You can do that for yourself if you're someone else. I've been the person in the front row at every disaster, and my scars are neat lines across my boundaries. Sunday came. The sky looked like it was thinking about rain. I put on jeans and a black sweater, and my smallest gold hoops, and perfume that smells like oranges and discipline. I sat in the car and watched the clock blink from 3:19 to 3:20. At 3:35, Tessa slid into the passenger seat with a tote bag. "Snacks," she said. "Cashews, dried mango, the good chocolate, water so you can spit or swallow. And this." She handed me a small flat box. Inside was a keychain. It was a tiny version of the binder, black with an embossed mountain road. On the back, in small letters, it said, "Come home to yourself." The reveal. Mom's house was cleaner than it usually is when she's in a mood. The lemon pledge smell hit me first, then the sight of the plastic runner on the carpet like a path in a museum. The living room walls were lined with family photos in frames that didn't match. I saw myself at 10 holding a pie. Eli at 6, knees a mess, grinning through tears. Mom at 35, hair down, a look in her eyes like the future was a room into which she had keyless entry. She was sitting on the couch like it owed her rent. Eli was in the recliner, foot bouncing. Aunt Lori sat at the far end of the love seat, hands folded like a hymn without the church. My Aunt Paula was there too, which I clocked with a sigh. She is a woman who could run a world with her eyebrows and has won every fight I have watched her enter, even the ones that were only with herself. "Thank you for coming," Mom said. She was wearing a blouse I hadn't seen in years, ironed to within an inch of its cellular structure. She had lipstick on. It made her smile look like she'd been practicing. I put the binder on the coffee table, placed it right on top of a coaster. Tessa sat behind me on the chair near the bookshelf, bird elegant, a notebook in her lap, her pen at attention. "What's this about?" I asked. My voice was calm like a lake where you know eels live.
You know what this is about, Mom said.
She gestured toward the window. Outside, the Audi glinted. You bought a $55,000 car, and you didn't tell me. You didn't think to maybe talk to the family about such a big decision? Since when do we hold meetings about each other's purchases? I asked. Should I have convened a committee when you bought the Dyson? This isn't a vacuum, Paula said. She was smiling in that way she does when she thinks she's being benign. This is a car that costs more than some people's houses. It's financed, I said. Like most cars. Like your Suburban, Aunt Paula. I make the payments. The insurance. Everything. Mom sighed. It's not about the car, she said, which always means it is exactly about the thing we're naming. It's about priorities. It's about family. Eli has finally got a solid opportunity. A friend of a friend can get him into this training program, but he needs a reliable vehicle. We all make sacrifices for each other. I just think it would be a good idea, a kind gesture, for you to sell your car and help him get on his feet. I felt the sound in the room drain, like someone had turned down the oxygen. Sell my car, I said, to taste the words. For family, Mom said. That's what we do. Eli scrubbed his hand over his face. It's not what she has to do, he said. He glanced at me. It's a suggestion. A strong one. I worked 18 years to afford this, I said. This car is not a flex. It is the first purchase I made for myself where no one else gets to hold a corner of the receipt. What did you pay for the Civic?
Paula asked.
She said it like it was a trap. I breathed. Let's talk about receipts, I said, and slid the binder forward. I opened to section 1. I did not make a speech. I did not cross my arms. I let the paper talk for me. $1, $200 for Eli's bail in 2018, I said and watched Eli flinch. $3, $400 for the fridge at Nana's when it died, $289 here, and here for hospital parking and late-night Uber when your car wouldn't start, Mom. $2,337.49 for the Family Solutions account in my name, paid over 18 months because the interest was garbage. $4,000 for the beater car Eli crashed with no insurance reimbursement, $2,800 in cash for Eli's first month's rent, and deposit the winter he had to move out because he couldn't stand your rules. This is hurtful, Mom said, voice thin. I'm showing you facts, I said. This is just the money. The time is its own thing. 2 months of FMLA for your surgery. 23 appointments I drove you to because your legs wouldn't. Countless nights where I had 3 hours of sleep and still made it to my shift, and then to Eli's probation hearing. I did all of this because I love you, not because I owe you. And in return, you open accounts in my name without my consent. You asked me to carry a secret, like it was a baby. You told our family I'm the one who can handle it, so I should. Paula frowned a not now I'm embarrassed frown. She looked at my mother. About the accounts, Mom said. She sat up straighter. I made a mistake. I admitted that. But we are past that now. We are not past that, I said. I flipped to section 3. Here is a copy of the credit report with the inquiry from Northline Used Auto. Here are the emails where I disputed it. Here is the letter I wrote you saying I would press charges if this ever happens again. Here is the list of resources I gathered for you and for Eli so you do not need to use me as your solution. I have names and numbers of case managers who can help you with the medical bills that are still hanging around. I have a number for a legal aid clinic that can help you handle your debt without asking me to be a stranger to my own life. Eli shifted in his chair and looked at his knees. I didn't ask you to sell the car, he said. It sounded like he was trying to be on the right side of a thing he had already walked past. I did not ask her, he said to me, louder, and I believed him. Mom did, I said. I turned to my mother. You forgot my birthday again this year. That's not new. It's a tradition at this point. I did not call you to remind you. I didn't because I was tired of waiting for you to choose me. But you saw a car on my Instagram, and you organized a council like we are carving up land. You're not mad about priorities. You're mad you can no longer budget with my bones. Mom's face went hard and then soft, both quickly. She looked at Aunt Lori. She looked at Paula, like, She wanted a fist to hold. You think I don't love you? She asked me, voice hoarse. You think I don't appreciate everything you've done? I raised you.
You also raised Eli, I said.
But you expect less of him. And somewhere along the way you started believing that if I can carry, I should. I am telling you, I am done being a pack mule in a family that keeps adding bricks. What are you going to do then?
Paula asked.
Cut us off? That's dramatic. I slid the boundaries page across the coffee table. Simple bulleted list. No money. No co-signing. No loans. No buying things in my name. Emergencies mean medical or safety only. Consequences: 3 months of no contact if you push or cross a line. After that, we reevaluate. Family therapy, if you want to try. Mom, you and I can do 2 sessions, just us, if that feels safer. Eli, I will help you connect with resources, but I will not hand you cash. I am not punishing you. I am protecting myself. For a moment, there was quiet. I heard the refrigerator hum, a long low where like a throat clearing before a sermon. This is cruel, Paula said, which is a thing people say when the person who has always been soft starts wearing shoes. Aunt Lori surprised me. She put her hand on her thigh and patted it once, like she was marking a beat in a song. I think it's brave, she said. I think it's overdue. Mom's eyes filled. She is not a big crier. She lets tears rest in her eyelashes like she's decided to be the ocean's understudy, but hasn't practiced. If I apologize, will you sell the car? She asked. I laughed, a small sound that hurt my throat. No, I said. If you apologize, maybe we can find our way back to something where I can be your daughter, without being your plan B. Tessa squeezed my shoulder without touching me. Mom's shoulder sagged. Eli looked at Mom, and then at me. He nodded once, an apology shaped like a gesture. Fine, Mom said, and the word was not fine. Do what you want. You always have. She stood up, which is how she ends conversations. I stood too. I'll check in tomorrow, I said to Aunt Lori. Mom, if you want to talk about the resources, I'll leave the list. If you don't, okay. You posted that car like you wanted to hurt me, Mom said. Her voice was small and sharp. Like you wanted me to see you don't need us. I wanted to celebrate me, I said. And I wanted you to celebrate me too. Not the car.
Me.
We left the binder with copies. Tessa and I walked out into the late afternoon, the light gold with things I didn't have a name for. Someone, a neighbor, stood watering petunias, watching like she was on the edge of a TV show. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt unraveled and new. The next morning my phone was a field of missed calls and texts. Aunt Paula sent a long message that started with "Your mother is heartbroken" and ended with "People talk, Mara." My cousin Nadia screenshot my mother's Facebook post, a vague status about children forgetting where they came from and the tragedy of materialism. There were comments that said, "Praying for you and kids these days." My mother called once. I let it go to voicemail. Her voice was shaky and furious. I can't believe you would talk to me that way, she said. After all I've done. People are asking me how you could afford that car. If you're doing something you shouldn't, you have to tell me. I won't have rumors hurting this family. The rumor, as it turned out, was that I had a sugar daddy. Someone, probably the cousin with the eyes emoji, suggested it at a backyard barbecue. It is interesting how quickly outrage becomes a story people enjoy the sound of. She works nights, one aunt said, lowered voice, a laugh under it. Who knows what goes on? Nadia texted me. I shut it down. I told them you worked your ass off. I told them you got a raise and a bonus you never talked about because you don't brag like they do. She added a crying, laughing face then. The old people are wild. I love you. I posted a message that I wrote and rewrote 12 times. It said, "Love isn't measured by what we buy each other or how much we owe. I have worked for 18 years in healthcare and saved for a car I love. I will not be discussing my finances with extended family. If you have questions about my character, ask me. Better yet, look at my life." I disabled comments because I'm learning. Mom didn't speak to me for 2 weeks. Aunt Lori did. She texted me photos of her dog wearing a raincoat. She called me on her way to the grocery store, and we talked about asparagus and the weather. Tessa came over, and we sat in my car with the seats heated and listened to old R&B and ate Trader Joe's snacks like teenagers. Eli called. He said, "I'm sorry," and it sounded like a hand extended. He said, "She's mad." I said, "I know." He said he was thinking of leaving town for a bit, a fresh start with his friend in Denver. I did not offer money. I did give him the number of a program my friend Aaron recommended that helped people relocate for work. He said thanks, without resentment. Maybe he meant it. Maybe he was tired too. Mom responded by trying new moves. She sent me a photo of a medical bill with a question mark. I sent her the phone number of the hospital's billing advocate and a script of what to say. She replied, "I don't have time for this." I said, "I love you, and I can't do this for you." There was a night when I lay in bed and felt like a traitor. When I pictured 10-year-old me making the pie and thought about the way my mother had looked at me like I was a future she'd made with her bare hands. There was a morning when I woke up and breathed deep, the way you do when you've been sick and didn't know you could still fill your lungs. Both were true. I started therapy. My therapist, a woman named Rena with streaks of silver in her hair that looked like lightning caught and tamed, asked me on our first session to tell her where I felt my mother in my body. I said, "In my shoulders," without thinking. She said to imagine placing my mother down on the couch across the room. Not out the window. Not under a car. Just on the couch.
"You can talk to her from there," she said.
"You can hear her without her sitting on your bones." I drove. Not to escape. I drove to feel the weight of my choice in my hands. The Audi became a moving room where my past and my present could see each other clearly. It's a silly car to put so much feeling into. But it was never about the car. It was about permission. The seat remembered me. The steering wheel warmed like a palm. I took day trips to the coast before my night shifts and stood with my shoes in the sand and let the water argue with the land while I drank coffee and let my shoulders drop a notch. At the hospital, a teenage girl threw a urine sample at me, and I caught it. I told Tessa later, and she laughed so hard she wheezed. Leon brought donuts on a Tuesday, and we ate them in the supply closet and shushed each other and felt like criminals for getting through a day we could not have gotten through without sugar. Mrs. Gutierrez came to my door with a Tupperware of pastelitos and a small plant. "I wanted to see your fancy car," she said, and rolled her eyes at herself. We went downstairs, and I opened the passenger door for her, and she sat like she was being introduced to royalty. "It smells like money," she said, and then, when I looked sideways, "No, Mija, don't be offended. It smells like someone who can say no." Mom sent me a video of our nephew's birthday party and a text that said, "I thought maybe you'd want to see." It was an olive branch disguised as a breadcrumb. I said, "Thanks," and sent a heart. The next day, she texted me about the insurance advocate. She was nice, she wrote. She got the bill reduced. "Thank you." The day after that, she sent me a photo of a casserole and wrote, "This came out bad. Don't make this recipe." I laughed, alone in my kitchen, the kind of laugh that unclenched something. Eli left for Denver. He texted me from a bus station with a picture of his face next to a sign that said Reno. He looked both proud and ridiculous. He called a week later, voice echoing. "It's hard," he said. "I want to come home, and also I don't." I said, "That's how you know you're doing something right." He told me he had a job washing dishes 4 nights a week and a roommate who wasn't creepy. He didn't ask for money. I thought about sending it anyway and didn't. A month after the family meeting, Mom asked if I'd meet her for coffee. We chose a diner halfway between our neighborhoods, the kind with peach booths and pie slices under domes. She wore the blouse again, like a superstition. I wore a gray sweater and no makeup, and tried not to pray to anything. We hugged like people who are good at hugging in public.
She ordered tea.
I ordered coffee and a scone that looked like it had fallen off a truck. We did small talk first. The cashier at the store who quit without notice. The neighbor whose dog had puppies that looked like dust bunnies with opinions. The change in weather. The new cashier at the pharmacy who stole her heart. Then she took a breath that was half apology and half pride swallowing. I told Paula to mind her own business, she said. She had too much to say about something she doesn't understand. She looked up at me like she wanted me to give her an A on her homework. Thank you, I said and meant it. I sent the letter to the collection agency, she continued in a rush. I blinked, surprised. The one you gave me the template for. I asked for validation of debt, and they sent me something and then it was wrong, and now they're not calling. It feels like magic. That's not magic, I said. That's you advocating for yourself. I'm proud. She cried then. A simple, wet, quiet cry that made the older man at the table behind her look over and then look away with a small nod. She wiped her face with a napkin and left it in a neat square on the table like she was staging a photo. I'm sorry I forgot your birthday, she said. I am not an excuse. I am a person who forgets things sometimes because I'm in my own movie. I'm trying to be in yours too. I cried too. We sniffed and laughed at our patheticness, and the waitress brought us more napkins without asking because she is an artist. We didn't fix everything in that diner. We did not rewrite a family system over coffee and a scone.
But she looked at me.
Not at what I could do for her. Not at the shape she wanted me to fill. At me. We made a plan to do 2 therapy sessions together. We said we'd text about dinner next week. We agreed that if she needed help with the bill, she'd send me the bill and the phone number and I would send her a script and she would call. We agreed that if she tried to add my name to anything without my consent, we would not speak for 3 months. She nodded. She did not say, that will never happen, because we both grew up in a house where never was a word we used to flirt with trifles. On my way home, I stopped at the river and parked and watched ducks commit to a direction like it mattered. The engine ticked as it cooled. I put my hand on the steering wheel and thanked it for what it had done, been a symbol with a job. I looked at my face in the rearview mirror and saw someone who had been through something and didn't apologize for it. What I learned. Here is what I know now in a way that sits in my bones. Boundaries are not weapons. They are fences you put up around the things you want to keep growing. They keep the goats from chewing your garden to stalks. They also tell people where the gate is and that you will open it if they knock and not climb. I learned that I will never be able to retroactively parent my mother. All I can do is decide which version of her I will invite into my home. I can love the little girl inside her who didn't get to be soft without letting her ride on my shoulders while I pay her bills. I can send her scripts and phone numbers and cheer when she uses them. I can choose not to answer calls that are disguised demands. I learned that rumors are a family's way of letting off steam they would rather release in a more honest conversation. They can be mean. They can be ridiculous. They can turn into currency in rooms where there isn't enough real money. The only antidote I found that didn't make me feel less was to tell the truth, out loud, one-on-one, to the people who matter. And to practice not caring about those who don't. My revenge, if I'm allowed to use that melodramatic word, was not the car. It was not the binder. It was continuing to love who I am when I'm not usefully useful. It was throwing a dinner for myself with friends and not inviting the part of me that waits by the phone. It was letting my mother feel the long, cold, boring ache of natural consequences. It was being able to get into a car I chose and drive to see the ocean without spinning a web of explanations. I learned that found family doesn't replace blood. It braids into it. It shores up the places where the wood has rotted. It brings donuts and a small plant and a keychain that says, "Come home to yourself." It sings off-key in break rooms and tells you when your hair looks like you fought a branch and lost, and then fixes it with a bobby pin from a pocket like magic. I learned that closure is not a building with a door you lock. It's a window you open when the air gets stale. It is getting comfortable with the fact that some rooms in the house of your life will always smell a little like smoke. You learn where the smoke detectors are. You learn where the fire extinguisher is. You learn when to call the fire department and when you can turn the stove off and open a window. When my mother sees the car now, she makes a small face that I think maybe means pride and then calls it the spaceship like we've agreed to a joke. We do 2 therapy sessions and they are messy and good. She does not like the word enmeshment. She does like the word do-over. I am careful about what I say yes to. I am also careful not to turn no into my only skill. On nights when the hospital feels like a battlefield, I come home and sit in the driver's seat even if I'm not going anywhere. I press the button and the engine hums, and the dashboard lights up. I picture every woman I have ever been sitting in the seats around me. The girl who made pie. The teenager at the coffee shop with hands that smelled like dish soap and espresso. The nurse in sneakers with compression socks and a smile that hides teeth. The woman who brought a binder to a living room and said, "This is what I will accept." And then I put the car in drive and go nowhere and everywhere at once. I finally drove home to myself.